Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Hello, everyone. This is Carter Froelich, and welcome to the Land to Lots podcast. Today, I have a special treat for everybody. We have Kirk Lagarda and Dwayne Heckman of the Land Advisors Organization's Houston office. And we're going to be talking to both Dwayne and Kirk about what makes the Houston market so special. So Dwayne and Kirk, before we get started, maybe you could just share with the audience a little of your background as it relates to the Houston market.
Kirk and I are both been in real estate brokerage work since 1984. So I guess that's coming up on 39 years each. We both are raw land brokers, have always been raw land brokers. And probably over the last 20 something years, our businesses have migrated to being evolving around the single family residential world, whether it be private home builder, public home builder, master plan community developer, a smaller developer type. About 80% of our business is that. We do sell land for apartments. We do sell land for retail. We do sell land for industrial, investment, pad sites. We sell all types of land, but most of it is evolving around single family, and it is all land. So there's no leasing or improved properties, high rise, anything of that nature, just raw land.
So, and during that time, you've seen a number of changes in the market, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, first off, Dwayne and I both got into business in 1984 from my dad's brokerage company. Basically started the same day, not the same day, certainly the same week. And they put us in a cubicle that was probably, I'm going to say at best, it was 12 by 12 with a little partition.
Maybe.
So we have known each other for ever since 1984. Never met the man before that day. And we've been best friends for a long time now. So, if you know anything about real estate in Houston in 1984, things were actually going fairly well, but being absolute just raw bone rookies like we were, we didn't see much in the way of transactions. Well, 84 led to 87, which was we called it the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So and then that morphed into the S&L scandals. S&Ls went bust. RTC took over, and 7 years later we started making money. So basically, for the first 6 years, we starved to death, and many people got out of the business and left. So that was our cutting of our teeth. Since then, we like Dwayne said, you could pick up where he stated that we really have kind of morphed into being really senior brokers in the Houston area, and that have a lot. What is it, Dwayne? 36 years now. We got 37 years of the business. So
I think almost 39. Cardi, so Kirk touched on 1984, and then it was about 92 before things kind of returned. But there was also a dip in 2001, when the dot-com bubble burst and Enron went away. Mm-hmm. And then there was the not Great Depression, a big recession in 2008, 2009. And then there was a pretty steep oil decline in 2016. So we've seen these kind of things numerous times. But Kirk always says it pretty well. Houston, historically, when something like this happens, is usually the last one out.
The last one in.
The first one out, and has a shallower trough.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's amazing, anytime you look at the top selling real estate markets, Texas is 4 of the top 10. It seems like just about all the time. And in preparation for today's call, I was going through the RCL code top 50 selling master plans that they had put out, and then we had launched, kind of drill down on their numbers and explain how all the master plans are being financed. But the thing that was interesting, of the 50 top selling master plans, there were 13 that were based or in the Houston MSA. So, yeah, what is the driving factor that keeps Houston one of the top selling, master plan community sales locations, if you will? But then also, what keeps Houston constantly, in the top national real estate markets? Is there any, secret sauce that you guys can directly point to? What is your experience?
Yeah, Carter, I would say and this is going to be contrary to, I think, the way a lot of people view real estate, and that is that there is no zoning in the vast majority of Houston. So it really is a developer's paradise. You can buy a large tract of land, which are relatively readily available. You could entitle it the way that you want it to entitle it, which is a very diverse community. And you don't have, there's just, at least up until fairly recently, there hasn't been very much governmental interference. So you don't have to go, kiss the hand of the local zoning people. You don't have to go hire a specialist. It's a very, very laissez-faire market, very capitalistic market, and it works. It works if you unbridle the I guess animal spirit of real estate and development. That generally, by and large, people do a good job, and because of that, it's home. Johnson Development started here. There's been several other major community developers. Brookfield over the years, which is, used to be, there's just a lot of different master plan community developers that have started here and just prospered here.
And Kirk touched on one of the most important pieces of that puzzle is the availability of large land tracts. And a lot of properties around in the greater Houston area, they were, particularly in the southwest part of town, a lot of those properties have been owned by the same family since the original land grant from Mexico in the 1830s. And so when you have an availability of large tracts and lack of governmental influence on them, that's a incubator for big MPCs.
Yeah.
Which is how it works. And then really, Kirk touched on it. It is a pure, with no zoning, is a pure supply and demand world. You build a better mousetrap. You develop to what the buyer wants or the end consumer wants versus some 19-year-old kid who just got out of P&Z school who works for some podunk town telling you how things should be developed because that's what they learned in school.
Yeah. Now that's real interesting. And I think as we were getting ready for this, you were reciting some information related to the number of residential sales, good times, bad times, that I thought was really impressive. Could you share that with the audience, Dwayne, in terms of, the number of sales that have occurred over the last 20 years, kind of on an average?
I may be wrong on the number of years. Kirk will correct me. I believe it's 22 years. I could be wrong, but I know the number is no less than 18,400 starts over that time frame.
And that is an impressive number, by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah.
No other town in the country can claim that. Can't even get close.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah.
Back up just a little bit to Houston. Houston is an extremely diverse town. Probably the most diverse in the country. It is a very pro-business, get it done atmosphere that is in our town. And with no zoning, here's what also gets lost. We're not a downtown centric town. There are like 14, maybe 15 major work centers spread across the greater Houston area. East to west is about 130 miles. North to south is about 140 miles. So you've got all these work centers way out in the middle of nowhere that got created because somebody created a master plan out there They formed a MUD to create water and sewer and drainage. And then that person can live in a new community relatively close to where they work in a major work center.
Yeah.
That's what allows Houston to be as geographically large as it is. I tell people all the time as they move to Houston, I'm sure Kirk will agree, is within reason. If you want to live pretty close to where you work, you can.
Yeah. And you mentioned something else too that I was just going to piggyback off of, and that was the term MUD, standing for a municipal utility district. And the other thing that I think would add to a lot of the growth, in addition to the fact that there's not a lot of governmental interference, there's no zoning, large tracts of land, is the fact that the developers can be working to set up municipal utility districts that ultimately will fund the water, sewer, storm drain, parks, and roads to the extent they have road powers too. So there is a lot of availability of public financing that's also available. And the thing that makes it a little different in Texas and in Houston in particular with the MUDs is the fact that the developers know relatively 99 out of 100 that they're going to be able to issue bonds to get repaid for the infrastructure dollars they put in the ground. So I think is that another contributing factor, guys, that there is the availability of public finance in Houston?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Reimbursements are key to development in Houston. And whether in some cities, some of the outlying cities are kind of against MUDs. They certainly allow PIDs.
Yeah.
But by and large, the vast majority of and I say vast majority, I mean, we're talking 95+% has used the vehicle of either municipal utility districts or public improvement districts as a reimbursement vehicle. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And with Houston's population growth, which has been trending up pretty steadily since 1980s, early 1980s. I think we've moved from a town of 3 million, greater Houston area, to 7.2 million, something along those numbers. There is no way without public financing or municipal utility districts, there is no way that the governmental entities could possibly keep up to meet water, sewer, and drainage needs.
Yeah.
They don't have the bandwidth, don't have the money. And so MUDs allow that to happen.
Yeah, no, it's just been absolutely incredible, what's been going on. So when a home builder, an investor, a land developer gives you guys a call, and what are some of the common questions you get about Houston, from somebody that's not familiar with the Houston MSA and is looking for an opportunity? I mean, are there some common questions that you keep on getting, or
yes,
from some of the newbies? Yeah, and what would those be? Good, bad, ugly? What are the common questions?
Some of the common questions are no zoning. I mean, how do you how does that work? And like I said earlier, it works very well. And that's why master plans have been so prolific in the Houston areas, because the funny thing is, Carter, and you asked the question, when the economy does have some pressure, economic pressure, financial pressure, whatever, MUD districts, or I should say master plan communities, they are the ones that their home pricing goes down the slowest and very little, and then it rebounds more quickly. Mm-hmm. And the percentage of sales in master plan communities, the price points are higher. And that is because it's development zoning is what we call it. We call it, and Dwayne does a very good job, he calls it price zoning. So there's just certain things that can't go in a certain area because it's too expensive. Mm-hmm. And the developers keep it that way because that's their form of zoning. They keep things out by doing that. But there's if a builder comes into Houston and says, "Hey, I'm looking to by lots, by land, what have you, it's usually a very, very long and lengthy process. The best way for home builders, or one of the ways certainly for home builders to come in, is by buying an existing local home builder that's already generally a small private home builder that already has lots on the ground, already has bandwidth, and already has a track record. The other way is to come in, and there are some that are doing it now, they come in and try to purchase lots, but it's a very, very, very tough slog. It takes, generally speaking, it takes years to be able to get a position in basically to get enough pipeline and runway where you can actually get a foothold, a toehold, and start to make progress.
So to dovetail on Kirk's comments about no zoning and MPCs, which are really private zoning, that developer is trying to put a product on the ground that will sell to home builders, home buyers, retailers, or whatever. So they're trying to put the best product on the ground because that is a capitalistic viewpoint of supply and demand. Whereas when you have zoning, that's usually some governmental entity's idea of what things should look like. They don't really care if the public buys into it or not. That's not on their radar screen. So you've got two very divergent viewpoints, and one works in our market, works better than the other. So that's another question we get is, how do MUDs actually work? How does all that work? That's from somebody who's out of town. And then we frequently hear this with no zoning is, well, how do I protect myself? If I build let's say, for lack of a better example, if I build an apartment complex, well, with no zoning, what's to prevent the guy across the street on a vacant piece of land from developing a competing apartment complex? We're like, nothing. Well, how do I protect myself? Well, you need to build a better mousetrap.
Yeah.
Because this is an ultimate supply and demand town. So the best do well. And if you don't do very well, you don't do very well. You don't build a good product, you don't do very well.
Everybody's forced to up their game, to meet the demands of the market, which is
highly
laissez-faire, right?
Like Kirk said, a very laissez-faire environment, and zoning is not going to protect you putting a bad product on the ground.
So when we have the newbies coming in and they're asking, some of these common questions, in the back of your mind, you both have to be thinking, well, those are interesting questions. We get them all the time. What you really should be thinking about and asking us is blank. Fill in the blank. So I'm gonna turn that over to you. And what are the questions that you think they should be asking you, as opposed to some of the questions you're getting all the time?
That's an interesting question, Carter. I would tell you if I were coming to Houston for the first time and scheduling an appointment with Dwayne and myself, I think some of the questions that should be asked are, what do I need to be? Where can I really hurt myself? Where are some areas, or what are some things that I need to, some fatal flaws or real mistakes that I'm going to make that are just going to be really painful? What are those? And on top of that is, if and this is, I think this is true of anybody. If you go into a market and say, okay, let's say I've got, you name the price, I got 10 million, 20 million, 100 million I want to do something with. What would that be? Tell me what I should do. Tell me what I should plan for, and how long is it going to take? I mean, as you know, in our business, in our industry, if you buy raw land in Houston, at least, it's generally speaking 24 to 36 months where you have lots on the ground. That's a long time. That's a long runway. You're going to be in this for the long haul. Most cities, I'm guessing, probably have a little bit longer runway before they get things started. So a lot of people that come into town, they expect to get something, that in cycles, as you know, cycles, they can run long, but they can also run short. And so somebody comes in, is going to put in 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million. They need to understand that this is going to be a multi-cycle event. And you can try to time it as best you can, but 9 times out of 10, you're just going to get it wrong. And so you just, as Dwayne said earlier, you have to plan on building a better mousetrap and have some experience.
So we try to look at properties. If we're representing a seller, we try to get the questions answered that a astute buyer would ask, so we can best represent the seller. And Kirk touched on them. And timing is most important, but how do you get water to it? How do you get sewer to it? Can you drain it? Do you have surface control or don't you have surface control? And not only the school district, but what school district is it in, but also what are the attendance zones for that particular property within that school district boundary? Because as we understand, a lot of places around the country, the school district boundaries align with the county boundaries, and that is not the case down here.
Mhm.
So you can't say, oh, this is a good school district, because every good school district has got some schools that don't perform as well. And then sometimes a school district is viewed as an inferior school district, but typically they'll have some schools that perform well there as well. So that attendance zone for a particular school district is very important. And a lot of people don't think to ask that question.
Yeah, no, that's great info, guys. You've given me a lot of great insight into the Houston market, and I'd like to throw this out to both of you. But what is the one question that I have not asked that I should have asked that you feel somebody interested in the Houston market should be aware of before they get on the phone and give you guys a call?
Why wouldn't we use land advisors would be a great question.
Touche. Kirk, anything you want to add to
No,
that?
I would just say, and I'm sure everybody's heard about it, drainage, and
Yep.
and especially from Hurricane Harvey. How has that changed things since Harvey? That would be, I think, a very pertinent question to ask, because it has changed things and it continues to change things.
And let me just piggyback off that a little bit. With everything you're seeing right now in the news related to climate change, to all the extreme weather events we're having, in the South, and has there been a movement afoot with some of the governmental agencies in the Houston area to revise any type of regulations related to drainage that would impact the land development community?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can't have a Hurricane Harvey event and not expect greater governmental regulations centered around that. And most of our drainage is controlled by the counties. So the counties make the rules and set the standards. And it's a complicated, difficult issue. And by and large, I think development and developers are very much running and walking hand in hand with these governmental agencies. They don't want flooding or drainage issues or any issues like that, just like anybody else doesn't. So I think everybody's working hand in hand to try to look into the crystal ball and the future of what's happening, what's going on, and what people can see as far as they can into the future with this climate change and stuff, and work around that. But at some level, you can't protect against unreasonable things. And any town, any place in the world, you get 53 inches in 5 days of rain. You can't. I mean, you couldn't do anything. There's no town anywhere that could do anything. And other areas have earthquakes, and other areas have tornadoes. I mean, you can't plan and do things to plan for a tornado. You can build structures as safe as you can build them, but to make something truly tornado proof, it would be too expensive, and people generally wouldn't be able to afford it. Now, there's things that we can do that are common sense, that make sense, and that are easier to do, and there's things that are more difficult. But by and large, every developer in town wants to see progress in that area, and whatever the rules are, if let's get them out there, and let's have an approval process that is more streamlined than what it has been, certainly, because it's taking a long, very, very long time to get drainage approvals.
Yeah.
The misnomer on all of this is that new development increased flooding during Harvey. And a couple of Metro Study being one of them, another group did some homework. I can't remember that company's name. They did some homework on this. And I believe like 95 or 96% of all the homes that had any type of flooding in them during Harvey were built before 1981, when there weren't even floodplain maps.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells you conversely is only 4 or 5% of new development housing had any kind of flood damage to it at all.
Yeah. And that's also what I remember from urban land. A lot of the master plan developers were taught after Harvey were showing the impacts of Harvey on their projects, and they were minimal, if any, just because they had planned for it. They had, they want to protect everybody. They had put in the proper drainage, and it really wasn't it wasn't a big issue for them. So, but it is something that I thought would be important to bring up during this conversation.
Very, very important. And I frequently hear this from people in town. We have a big rain and they say, "Oh, my street flooded." And Kirk and I will be more than happy to tell them, well, either your street's going to flood because they use streets to hold water before it gets in the storm sewer system, or your house is going to flood. You take your pick. There's that much water. There's going to be water standing, because Houston is flat. The only place that has water has to go is up. And so our streets are designed to hold water for a short period of time as they release into the storm sewer system. Works very efficiently.
And anybody who's come here knows it can rain really, really hard for a 30-minute, sometimes an hour. I mean, it can rain really, really hard. And that's why it's designed that way.
Yep. So it works. So new developments and their lack of flooding work very, very well. And we can't emphasize that enough. It's housing that was done before 1980 or 1981. That's where 95% of all the flooded houses occurred.
Yep. And guys, we're getting close to our closing time here. Just do you have any closing comments you would like to make for the audience before we sign off?
One comment, a very distinguished master plan guy in our market, been here forever. He told Kirk and I years ago, when you've got a town of 7 million people, that's kind of a pro-business kind of town, good things are going to happen in that town pretty much all the time. You're going to see job growth. You're going to see new housing demand. You're going to see demand for land, all goods and services. It's just a huge economy. We're not immune, but boy, it's sure protected just through the sheer size of your economy.
Yeah, and I would say for major city, this town is the most diverse city ethnically in America, and that's not by accident. We are incredibly accepting of anybody that comes down here, wants to work hard. You don't have to have a name. You don't have to have, quite frankly, a great deal of money. You have to have drive and ambition and play by the rules. And people here, I think we take it for granted. I was born and raised in this town. We take it for granted, but people want to help people, and I think that really some of the most proud moments I had were some of the stuff of Harvey, where people literally, I mean, they were taking boats out of their barns and sheds and driving around, picking people up, rescuing people, saving people. There was nothing the government could do. It was hand-to-hand combat, so to speak. And it was citizen helping citizen. Didn't care what you looked like, didn't care what you had, didn't care what you drove, don't care. I'm just trying to help you. Yeah. And that is something that I really think rings true of Houstonians, that we're very, very accepting of people. And we want to help. I mean, we want to help people succeed. I mean, that's how Dwayne and I make our living, is we help people succeed. And that's really, I think, really what makes land advisors in particular, and a land advisor, something that's a person that is unique, because we want to help people.
Very well said, Kirk.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day today to speak with us and the audience. Just a note to all the listeners. We will be putting Dwayne and Kirk's V cards and attaching those to our show notes. Should you care to get in touch with both of these gentlemen to discuss the Houston market in greater depth, you'll have the ability to do that. So guys, thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And have a great day, guys.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Tune in next week for the next episode.